Good day to you, my dear friend. Long time no see. Wanna hear a little secret? Come closer then. Closer, don't be shy. Do you know who's a good boy? Who's a good boy? Who's my good boy? Do you know who's a good boy? You are. And that is because you have made it here to the part 3 of my journey to complete my crab called regiment for Turnip28. This is what my regiment looks like so far. I have already built unit of fodder, backbone of every Turnip28 regiment. Stun gun, devastating, unstable artillery, and a pair of toadies who will shout orders at their respective units. All that remains to build now is my Toff and 2 giant freaking crabs. And oh boy, I cannot wait to finally sculpt me some proper giant crabs. But before that, I have to pick up where I left off in the previous video and finish the Toff, main snob of this regiment. I usually imagine my Toffs as various wacky inhabitants of the cyst. My favorite is my monkey pope, with his kindergarten of little rootlings. Savagery combined with religious zeal inspires his subjects. But maybe he is just being mind-controlled by the little rootling sitting on his shoulder. I personally love this miniature. It is just a Simeon Pope from company Eureka Miniatures. I really recommend you give them a look and search through their mini catalog. A figure from Eureka Miniatures was also used as a base for my next stuff I call The Guy That Lives in a Pot on the Walking Stump. Swine Polion leads the regiment when I choose to play as a fungivorous herd. The swine mount doesn't give him any bonus to attacks or movement, but damn, he looks epic on it. When it comes to cult-specific Toffs, I also made Boletus on his fungal steed to lead great proboscis. When building him, I took inspiration from official art, but I thought he needs more mushrooms and cooler hat. For my snail regiment, I made this God Emperor of Shellwood. He wants to lead humanity onto a slimy golden path. And of course there is Todd. Just look at him, such a cute little lovable guy. When I had to come up with a new top for my Feast of Charybdis regiment, I wanted something iconic. And after a little research, I rediscovered a painting of Venus from Sandro Botticelli. I can imagine that with some mud and tufts, she can be adjusted to look like she is part of the world of Turnip28. I had to find a suitable miniature. I was playing with the thought of just 3D printing some Venus replica, but I realized that would be no fun. Where would be the joy of crafting something with my own 2 hands, I asked. So I started my search for the right miniature, and I found this barmaid lady for D&D. I made a little sketch of how I want her to look. She will be standing in the opening clam on the high ground so everyone can see her. She doesn't look anything like Botticelli Venus now, so I will have to make few adjustments. The obvious thing is that she's not naked. So after chopping her head off to make room, I got into scraping her clothes off, taking extra care not to carve too deep so I preserve all her important womanly features. Then I had to cut her up a little to adjust her pose. Her arms and legs and head were reattached in the right position according to the painting. I fixed gaps with milliput and resculpted her buttocks that had been lost during the process of undressing her. I made her a new hair with milliput and green stuff. Sculpting hair is easy. You just make the correct shape and then pull your sculpting tool along its length until it looks like hair. For more dynamic effect, I glued tiny strands of green stuff to represent her hair locks being played with by the wind. The next big sculpting challenge was her hands, and to be honest, I am not still quite sure how I pulled it off. I started by creating tiny hand-shaped flaps, and then I simply carved in the gaps between the fingers. And after a little bit of tinkering with it, I ruled that these look good enough. Not to brag, but I think I pretty nailed this recreation of Venus. But build is far from over. I have to build now the base for her. To create elevation, I glued a piece of foam to the 60mm base and wrapped it in aluminum foil. That is, because then I glued cork to it and used a lot of super glue, which, as we all know, melts the foam. Next step was to cover the base in texture. I let it dry, and then idea came to my mind that my Swamp Venus will not just be standing on her little hill. She will be carried on the backs of the swarm of many little crab babies. Cool idea, but it means I had to free another few batches of Green Stuff World crabs from their 3D printed frames. And I did it for this project, but it caused me lots of agony and suffering. Don't come to Green Stuff World headquarters on 28th of June 2025. Some of you are cool. Anyway, I glued crabs on the base, cramming them next to each other as much as possible. When enough crab babies were glued, I pinned the clam on top of them. Milliput was added to fill up the space and to give the Venus something to stand on. I glued her into place, and after that I got to creating some beaky visor for her. It wouldn't be a proper Turnip28 miniature without one. I found a suitable visor from Edgincord Knight's kit and shaved it a little with my hobby knife to not look so big on her head. Then I cut off the tip of miniature spear, bent it a little, and attached it to the visor to make it beaky. Now that my Venus miniature gives off the right turnip vibe, it's the time to add camouflaging paper and towels with glue. And more crabs. These two little crab babies will hold the little plastic art banner. Little heat to shape it. Now just add a little more texturing, and it's done. I will put my Toff away, as I will batch paint it later with the rest of the models. And by rest of the models, I mean giant freaking crabs! The moment is finally here, my dear viewer, so let's not delay it anymore. The process is similar to one in the previous video, but this time in bigger scale. I made a quick sketch of the giant crab to have a better mental image of how he is gonna sit on his 100mm base. Foam was used to create foundation for the body. I cut it into roughly crab shape and then I covered one side of it with milliput. When the upper side of the body was fully cured, I added more foam to have a better foundation to build crab's underbelly. I covered it with milliput and added dents to attach legs into later. After the underbelly was cured, I started building up details on the crab's bodies. One will be more regular looking. I have sculpted the rim around this body and added some texture. And the other one will be all spiky. The last detail I added on the bodies were mandibles. Non-spiky one will have its mouth opened, so I added a set of small teeth. And now for the legs. I made legs like the last times on the small crabs, by rolling individual legs and claws segments. At first, I found it more difficult on larger scale, so I tried to speed up the process by making blue stuff molds. But that proved to be even more tedious, so I just came back to rolling. I made hole on the end of each segment, hoping it will allow me to better articulate legs later, and also make more space for glue to connect one segment to another. Then I glued legs together. I also pinned each segment to be extra safe. Each crab got a different pose. One will be standing and eating, and the other will be depicted mid-run. Spiky crab got some finishing touches in the form of tiny spikes created by pulling structure paste away from him by toothpick. For the last step, I just added some cork on the bases and covered it with texture. It was a long process, but ultimately both crabs were completed. But don't forget that the units I am building are called scuttlers, and scuttlers are the guys riding on the back of the crabs. These guys use their long hooks to pull their victims into close range of their hungry pets. First, I will build platforms to give scuttlers something to stand on. I glued together some coffee stirrers and cut them to my preferred platform shape. Then I took a piece of plastic art, cut 3 little dents in it, bent it around the wooden platform and glued it. I cut small plastic tube just on the one side and slid it onto plastic art to top it off. For the rest, I used milliput. When I dry fitted completed platforms to crabs, I found them too big and taking too much space on the silhouette of the crab. So I tried again and made smaller platforms. Now this looks way better. I planned the platforms to be visually similar to a stump gun. So I also sculpted some floral patterns. But then I decided it would be a better idea if the platforms were different. So I tore platform of the spiky crab to replace it with one made of wood with some shields glued on it. And now to kitbash scuttlers themselves. I used many different bits from different manufacturers. For one scuttler, I found suitable mini to work from in Dungeons & Lasers Townsfolk set. For the other, I found Saxon Sailor Body. And the last two I built from Wargames Atlantic Peasant Level X and Turnip28 torsos. I glued some arms on to attach brass rods to. If the original hands were already holding a spear, I cut it off and drilled a hole in them to put brass rod into. One pair of hands I just decided to sculpt. This time I wasn't so successful, but I decided to leave them as they were. And for one scuttler, I used arms from Saxon Sailor set. These arms have hands all opened and without weapons. Really great for what I wanted to do. Although their thumbs are placed a little weird. I made banner bearers the same way. Their poses weren't so tricky to get right though. Then I took my pliers, cut off the ends of brass rods to make them more sharp, turned them into little hooks and crooked them a little. Clean straight lines and Turnip28 are not going well together. To create separation between poles and hooks, I wrapped some dental floss around the brass rods and also added some green putty to make pole seams a little more thicker and textured. Then I glued the minis to the platforms and added some paper towels with water and glue. When swampy cloaks were dry, I made banner with familiar method, lighter and plastic art. I was about to add more wet kitchen towels on the crabs, but before that I glued some model chain around the crabs, so it looks like the platforms are chained to them. Unfortunate enemy soldier was added to the mouth of this crab. Poor guy. Then I textured the entire thing, banners included, and glued on some crab babies. And now giant crabs are completed, so let's slap some paint on them. Because these miniatures are quite big, this time I decided to prime them with rattle can. I primed them black, then grey from the sides, and gave them white zenithal. If you watched previous videos, you should already know my painting process and my color scheme. Plague bearer flesh on almost everything. I spared the big crabs because I'm gonna paint them purple later anyway. Gore granta fur on bodies. Demoned hide for crabs and banners. Then plate mail metal on metallic parts such as hooks, visor and armor, and Balthazar gold on various golden bits. Black and white color to draw some stuff on the banners. Here I made little detour to paint things deviating for my usual paint scheme a little. I painted some bits on the scuttlers with shyish purple and Vulpus pink, so they match color to their toadies. For the Venus, I painted the clam with Magus purple, so it's different shade of purple than crabs and banners. The Venus herself was painted with Bugman glow, and her hair was colored with vibrant orange color. I mixed some peachy color and painted inside of the clam for nice contrast. Wildwood on the bottoms of the bases. Then I washed everything with Army Painter Strong Tone. When that was dry, I used oil wash, and after letting it sit for a while, I smeared it off, leaving it only in recesses. Then I highlighted the entire thing. I dry brushed Demoned hide on the purple bits, then I mixed in some white color to make highlights even highlightier. Stormhost silver and Retributor armor for metallic bits. Venus was highlighted with Rackard flesh, and her hair was highlighted with orange and yellow. I also tried to use paint to exaggerate her important womanly features. Then I used the Dirty Down paints to dirty down everything, added some of my special turnip matte and AK paddles, and finally glued on some Toffs. And now for the grand reveal. These fellas are going to cause a lot of panic and gonna eat anyone standing in their way. Blessed by the Swamp Venus, my Feast of Charybdis regiment is now ready to claim all rude vegetables they can find in the battlefields of the Cyst. My journey to have a complete Feast of Charybdis regiment is at the end. It took me over 6 months, a little longer than anticipated, but I am pretty happy with the result. It was a time well spent. I am open to coming back to it in the future. Maybe this code will get some use out of cavalry units or chaff. But for now, I want to take a little break from painting and modeling this specific type of regiment. When I have time, I will play some games with it to see how its playstyle suits me. But right now, I have no idea what my next video is going to be about and what I'm going to craft or paint. Time will tell. In the meantime, go follow my Instagram to see other minis I painted. And if you haven't seen previous 2 videos of me building and painting this regiment, go give it a watch. You will not be disappointed. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button, of course. I hope you found some inspiration in this video series, and I encourage you to go finish your Turnip28 regiment. The root must grow. See you next time.